Mr. President, I've come to the floor today to fight for answers that are long overdue. In 2018, my hometown newspaper, The Oregonian, identified a handful of cases where Saudi nationals accused of serious crimes in the U.S., like manslaughter and sexual assault, fled the country and escaped American justice. Since then, the Oregonian has identified numerous similar cases. In fact, almost 24 such cases across the United States. That includes 19 in just the last 7 years. Today, I want to tell the Senate about just one of those cases. 3 years ago, not far from my home in southeast Portland, a young woman had her life taken from her. Fallon Smart was then a rising sophomore at Franklin High School, and she was aspiring to be a teacher. By all accounts, she would have been a terrific teacher. She was 15, and according to everybody who knew her, Fallon was warm and smart and friendly. She had her whole life ahead of her. According to police, she lost her life when she was crossing the street in front of stopped traffic and a vehicle illegally swerved into the left-hand lane and hit her at 55 or 60 miles per hour. Her mom was in a car half a block away and ran to her daughter. Fallon died in her mother's arms, and the car that hit her just sped away. A Saudi Arabian college student named Abdul Rahman Samir Noura later returned to the scene and was arrested. He was eventually charged with manslaughter in Fallon's death and then released on $1 million bail. The Saudi consulate posted his $100,000 bond, according to the Oregonian newspaper. Mr. President, in the United States, in our country, there was every expectation that Mr. Noura would get a fair shake from the justice system. And the justice system was working the right way here until 2 weeks before Mr. Noura was scheduled to go to trial. His tracking bracelet was somehow cut and he disappeared. Mr. Noura has never stood trial for Fallon Smart's death. Eventually, this spring, the State Department confirmed in a letter to me that Mr. Noura had returned to Saudi Arabia. And I felt then, and I do today, this raises an important and a serious question. How does a foreign national charged with manslaughter, whose passport was seized, disappear from the United States without a trace? How does this person escape the country and make it thousands of miles back to Saudi Arabia with there being no record of his doing so? News reports in 2018 suggest that the Saudi Arabian government knew about Mr. Noura and these other fugitives and potentially helped them flee justice. Mr. President, I have 5 children. I cannot imagine the grief I would feel if one of them was taken from me and the person responsible somehow managed to evade the justice system. It's almost impossible to comprehend the anger and the helplessness and the frustration that any parent would feel in a situation like this. I've met with Fallon's mom, Fawn, and while she and all of Fallon's loved ones have borne this miscarriage of justice with extraordinary grace, they're just heartbroken. And in addition to being heartbroken, they're angry, they're outraged by the notion that the person charged with killing their daughter may have just been able to escape scot-free and face no consequences for his action. For some time, I've been demanding information from the Trump administration. In my view, the victims of these crimes, their families, the American people, they're owed some essential answers. How did this happen? What is the United States government doing about it? I've written the Department of Justice. I've written the State Department. I've written the U.S. Marshals Service. I've written to the Department of Homeland Security. As far as I can tell, I would have gotten better answers from the Saudi royal family themselves. In fact, when I asked Secretary of State Mike Pompeo what he was doing to try to return the Saudi fugitives to the United States, basically what his department did, we just got a collective shrug of the shoulders. I sent the Secretary of State a letter last December. He didn't respond. So I sent another letter in February. I said the State Department needs to use all its resources and all the tools at its disposal to hold the Saudi government accountable. And Mr. President, I asked whether our ambassador had pressed the Saudi government about this disturbing, really shocking pattern of Saudi nationals skipping bail. The State Department finally did respond to my second letter. What I got was a whole bunch of nothing. One of Mr. Pompeo's aides said that without an extradition treaty, there just really wasn't anything they could do about it. This is from a secretary who tried to rebrand state, I quote, as the Department of Swagger, unquote. That swagger was nowhere to be found when it was time to protect innocent Americans. So, Mr. President, today I'm not writing any more letters. I'm here on the Senate floor asking for action. Action today. I am seeking to pass the Saudi Fugitive Declassification Act of 2019. My bill requires that the FBI director, in coordination with the Director of National Intelligence, would quickly declassify any and all information related to a key question: whether the government of Saudi Arabia helped any Saudi nationals escape the country when those Saudi nationals were awaiting trial or sentencing for a criminal offense. So let me just repeat that so there's no confusion. The bill requires that the FBI director, what's called the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, would quickly declassify any and all information on the issue of whether the government of Saudi Arabia helped any Saudi nationals escape the country when those Saudi nationals were awaiting trial or sentencing for a criminal offense in the United States. I believe what I am asking for today must happen in the name of justice immediately. The American people deserve answers. The people I represent at home, in our neighborhood in Southeast Portland, they want answers. These are not academic matters. This is not about a series of victimless crimes. This is about manslaughter. It's about rape. It's about a whole array of ugly offenses. This is about real people, real families, families that have suffered immeasurable pain. They deserve to see justice served. When individuals who are charged with violent crimes, no victimless crimes here, violent crimes, manage to escape, and when the United States fails to do much of anything about it, it undermines public safety, it harms the U.S. justice system. If, as some of the press stories have suggested, the Saudi government has helped these alleged criminals escape justice, the American people have the right to be doubly concerned. Is the public image of Saudi Arabia a higher priority than the safety of American citizens? Any action by a foreign government to thwart our criminal justice system would be an attack on our national security and our sovereignty. If that is what has happened, then all Americans deserve to know. So, Mr. President, I now ask unanimous consent that the United States Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S-2635 submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
S-2635, a bill to require the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to declassify any and all information relating to whether the government of Saudi Arabia assisted a citizen or national of Saudi Arabia in departing the United States while the citizen or national was awaiting trial or sentencing for a criminal offense committed in the United States and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I further ask...
Is there objection? Without objection.
I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry. With that action, has this bill now been passed?
It has.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.